So, I guess we're ready to get going. Thank you all for coming out. I know it's Halloween. You're like not trick-or-treating in order to come to the talk. I promise it will be worth it. So let me just get right to it. So I'm super happy to have John Enright here. His first trip maybe to Ohio, but definitely to Columbus. John is kind of great. I mean, this is another one of those intros that I could just go on and on and on. I'll try not to. John is the principal of Griffin Enright Architects based in LA. He's also the vice director at SCI-Arc. And if you kind of wonder what that job might entail, it's really he's Lester Wolfe from Pulp Fiction. Like, you remember that scene where the wolf comes to the door and he says, "I'm Lester Wolfe. I solve problems." And in a way, John, I think it's a really good analogy for how, or it's Winston Wolfe. What am I saying, Lester? Winston. But that's kind of how John rolls. And I think it's a good analogy for the way that his architecture works and also for the way that he operates as an administrator. I'll get to that. You know. Quit. Shut up. So, John was born in New Jersey, same town as Bob Somel. There's like something in the water there. He did his undergraduate studies at Syracuse, where he studied with Werner Seligman. Seligman was one of the Texas Rangers with Colin Rowe at the University of Texas at Austin. And with Seligman, John was exposed to a kind of tight, detail-driven formalism that I think a lot of has stuck with him. After Syracuse, he went to Columbia for graduate school, but was taught mostly by Angelenos, Eric Moss, Michael Rotundi, and perhaps most importantly, Tom Main. And from them, I think he picked up maybe a much looser but still detail-driven formalism that has stuck with him. After Columbia, he moved to Los Angeles and began to work with Tom and Michael at Morphosis in 1988. This was a time of transition for the firm. So not long after John arrived, Michael would move on from the firm to become the director at SCI-Arc. Not long after John arrived, this firm started to shift towards larger, more complex projects, and also started to shift toward kind of digital technology. So there were a lot of shifts going on in the place, and John was very central to that stuff. And so, Morphosis in the, say, early to mid-'80s was known for these kind of manically articulated houses, the ones that made them famous. And by the end of the 90s, they were really doing this large, much more measured, much more mature institutional work that would eventually win Tom the Pritzker Prize. And two of these projects in particular, Diamond Ranch High School and the Huppe Bank in Klagenfurt, Austria, were John's projects. So he ran these two projects. And Diamond Ranch in particular was really the moment where a lot of these shifts took place. Like Diamond Ranch is where the office kind of converted to using digital process. It was a very messy project. It was also the first, messy in terms of process, not in terms of the outcome. And it was the subject of the first source book that we did here at Ohio State. And I met John then, around 2000, when Diamond Ranch was under construction. John was basically living in a trailer in Diamond Bar, figuring out how to get that building built. And if you go back and look at the source book, what you'll see a series of dueling sketches. You'll see sketches by Tom Main that often are kind of more gestural, done with a big, fat, soft pencil. And then you'll see sketches on the facing page by John, which were done with usually pen or a much harder pencil. And they have labels and rooms worked out and stuff. And so again, you see John kind of wolf-like, solving problems, getting the project to work. After that, after the Huppe Bank and Diamond Ranch finished up, in 2000, John started his own office with his wife and partner, Margaret Griffin. Like many small firms, they started off doing small additions to houses around LA. Those got bigger and more ambitious. You'll see some of those tonight, I assume. They moved on to some institutional work, in particular the St. Thomas School and Boys and Girls Club in Los Angeles, both really fantastic projects. And they also did some just killer competition entries. and installations. So there's a great kind of floating lawn that they installed at SCI-Arc years ago, a kind of cafe on rails also for SCI-Arc. Proposed to excavate several 100,000 cubic yards of earth from around the Mack Center in Los Angeles. So really kind of visionary projects. And in these projects, and in the project that you're going to see tonight, there's kind of three things that I would want you to pay attention to. The first is Margaret's brilliance. I mean, it's absolutely present in these projects. It's all her. He's just kind of working them out. But two, I want to point out how well they work. I mean, the projects, if you study them, I hear John's going to show a lot of plans tonight, but they work well, and what you'll see in them is maybe shades of what Colin Rowe used to call lyrical efficiency. Like they work, but they work with a kind of groove to them. Maybe this is somehow gleaned from Seligman or some of his sources, but you'll see that throughout the projects. And it's something that I had called long ago, writing about Los Angeles, pragmatic radicalism, like a kind of wolf-like panache at not just solving problems, but solving them with a kind of style. And the third and final thing I would point out is how, particularly in the larger, later works, that Griffin Enright really transcends mere problem solving. And they achieve another quality that I'd written about a little bit, which I stole this term from Vladimir Nabokov, and he called it aesthetic bliss. And he described it as follows. He says that aesthetic bliss is a sense of being somehow, somewhere connected with other states of being where art, curiosity, tenderness, kindness, ecstasy are the norm. There are not many such books, he said. And I would say there are not many such buildings either. Like most buildings don't quite get there. And I used these two terms to talk about a bunch of LA architecture in an essay a long time ago, and I thought it kind of made sense. But really, for tonight, I think it's simpler and in many ways probably closer to think about the wolf. I mean, he solves problems, but the reason that we love him and we love to watch Pulp Fiction is because he solves them with this incredible panache. He takes these huge risks. He's completely unflappable. He never breaks a sweat. He knows exactly what to do at all times, or at least gives the appearance of knowing exactly what to do at all times. And that kind of careful, calculated, totally assured posture is what I think makes him such a great Tarantino character. And I also think it's very similar to the process that makes Griffin Enright such a great office to pay very careful attention to. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to John. Please help me give him a big welcome.
Thanks, Todd. Can everybody hear me okay? I have one of those voices that will absolutely put you to sleep. I've been told that by people that like, you talk and I just want to fall asleep. I have a low voice, so I apologize to that. I hope you're not too tired. Maybe the images will be more stimulating. I want to thank Todd again. You stole Todd from us, so I stole Christy Ballier as a part of a prisoner exchange program. And of course, Jeff is always back and forth constantly. I'm going to read a little bit in the beginning because I just got to get some of this stuff out, and then we're going to go through the projects, and it's going to be, it'll be an hour. But I really did want to get a few things. Of course, all this work, and I says, my partner, Margaret Griffin, if any of you know her, she's really the everything. I'm just kind of a front man suit. She often says to me, just look pretty, sit in the corner, and shut up. But every once in a while, I get let out, like tonight. She's too busy, so I get to start the illusion. And I like the wolf, that character comes up before it's come up with other people. If only the world was that easy, right? And what we love about that character is, if you remember, he tells everyone to shut up and just do what I say. and I'll get you out of here, right? Because they start, well, why do I have to take my shirt off? And he says, this is the rule. Otherwise, I'm leaving, right? And I'm not going to save your life. It would be great if we were all that powerful and life worked that way. And if that's my reputation, I'll take it. What goes on inside is much messier and full of insecurities, suffice to say. Anyway, let's see here. I'll figure out if I can get this. Over the last 18 years, we've worked on a whole bunch of different kinds of projects. We've been lucky enough to have a good number built. And I'd say building is important to us. And while all the projects come with their own particular constraints and limitations, and you could also say that the act of realizing a project, there's even more, always. We always believe that working through these constraints and manifesting in physical form is crucial to the practice. Always has been. That's why I came to LA. That's why I left New York. People were building. I was interested in it. Since we founded the office 18 years ago, we've always had at least one thing under construction, which has been really great. And related to that, I think we're known, as Todd said, to our attention to detail, and we definitely take pride in that. I hope that comes through in the work, although I'm not going to really talk about that much today. I'm not going to talk about the tectonics or the details. You'll see a lot of built work that I'm going to show. Is in a way, when we talk about that kind of thing, it's like, it's what every architect should do. It's what we do, kind of master our craft in that way. It's a little bit like maybe grammar. You should just have it, and you shouldn't really notice it. But then, when it's bad, you really can't stop looking at it. Like grammar is like that. So I always appreciate that comment, but I always feel like professionally that's kind of what we're supposed to do. We work at all different scales, as Todd mentioned. Larger projects, furniture, exhibitions. Let's keep off the grass there. That was I remember that's an old project about 15 years ago. And I'll never forget, as Jeff's here, I was on the mezzanine, and I was with another young architect at the time. And I think I just met you a few years before, and you said, I really like your installation. And I think I was with my daughter. She was about this big. She ran away. I said, oh, thanks. This guy said, did you hear what just happened? And I said, yeah, that guy, Jeff Kipnis, he said he liked the project. And the guy said, he doesn't like anything. Now, I didn't stick around long enough for you. Oh, I remember you said you really didn't like the wood beam and the tectonics underneath. And I said, that's what I worked the longest on. Anyway, I always remember that. So in that, I'm going to show you 10 projects. We've done a bunch of houses. And in the spirit of that, I'm going to show you 10 projects. They're all either built or under construction, and one is like just starting. And so some of the photos I'll show are kind of construction photos, kind of not high quality, polished architectural images. Others more so, depending on the project. And they're all in Los Angeles. One's in Northern California, and then the last ones are a bunch in China. Actually, they're just finishing. And then it's Halloween, and that's why I two reasons I called the lecture the Last House on the left. One is this is Wes Craven's 1972 movie, and it's Halloween, and that seemed appropriate. Also that you meet a lot of architects who say, I don't do residential work. You can't do it. It's too personal. And it's highly personal work. It's very difficult work, designing someone's home. And I'm always saying in the office, this is the last house. So I'm always saying, this is the last house, and I don't want to do any more. They're driving us nuts. And then we still keep getting them, and now we're really maybe even mostly known for our residential work. And we can't stop, and we just keep getting more opportunities to do them. So I'm not complaining that we're happy to have work and to work through it. And maybe this lecture, because I'm only showing houses, I'm only really going to talk about kind of 2 or 3 aspects of them. It's a very specific lecture in that way. I'm not trying to give you a kind of monograph of what we've done over 18 years. It's just kind of specific in this particular canon. But before I do that, I want to talk about a competition, and Todd mentioned it. And this was, I think 15 years ago. And it was a competition called the Vertical Garden competition that Eric Moss, and I think Hernan actually was involved in setting it up. The situation was this, and it's kind of part two. There was another architectural competition. This is the Schindler House, famous Schindler House of 1921 in Los Angeles. This is a plan of it. And Peter Norver, who was running the Mack Center through the Schindler House, there was a new building that was going to go up next to it, just to the south, just to the bottom of this plan. It was an apartment building designed by a local Los Angeles architect. And everybody was up in arms about this thing. You know, oh my God, it's going to ruin the Schindler House. There's like a bunch of architects with NIMBYism going, what are they going to do? You know, and it was Lorcan O'Hurley. He's a decent architect, guy I know. And they said, we need a vertical garden. We need a wall, you know, right here, you know, along the south. And then Eric and Hernan said, let's do a competition. And it was us and Servo and a bunch of SCI-Arc faculty. And they invited us. And my first reaction was, I don't want to do it. I think this is ridiculous. They're really kind of calling out Lorcan. You know, he's just a guy trying to do work. They're going to do an apartment building. I don't really see the project here. And then we started talking about it a little bit in the office. And then one thing led to another, and I said, okay, well, you know, I think we should give it a shot. So here's the house. As you know, again, I'm not going to go into the full history of the house, but Schindler built it. It was basically 2 families. You live upstairs. But what we were interested in was the present condition of the house. So well, basically what happened was, you know, since 1921, here it is in 1921, right? So he's an architect, young architect. He's buying the cheap land, which is like outside of the Hollywood Hills here. You know, this now looks like this today. But it was basically a house within open landscape. And then this stuff happened, right? So zoning changed, and the 45-foot height limit of apartment buildings came through on either side. And so this is now an apartment building that Lorcan did. And so this is where they wanted that wall. So I thought, well, look, the house is kind of odd anyway. It doesn't really need a wall, or maybe it needs something else. And so in a way to kind of maybe even comment on the competition itself and the premise, we had an idea that said, well, first of all, maybe the house is really like an object of art in the city in a way. It's been totally subsumed around it. No one really even lives there. There's events. In a way, one could consider it a kind of like a piece in a museum that one visits. It's isolated. So we came up with the idea to actually, as Todd said, excavate underneath it to fill and create this kind of wall around, which is a double helix set of ramps. Of course, because it's me, there are ADA landings every 30 feet, every 2'6", 1 in 12 slope, actually all work and calculated, and then intertwined. So the idea being you can go up the building to a kind of roof garden and then down, and then there'd be the big public space below. You'd underpin the entire building with steel beams beforehand, and like a bridge, then excavate underneath, so the whole thing would be kind of propped up. It would be a concrete building, homage to the tilt-up concrete of the original. And then we just began working on it. The world's smallest 3D print model. And then you get an idea of the section. So at this point now, we're looking at what concrete can do that's kind of blending between the kind of rigidity of the ramps and the double helix, exposing surfaces, kind of notions of kind of arches of concrete, and then finally the garden on the roof. And then this is the whole object. This is the ground plane right here. And so the weird thing is we won the competition. So this is whatever that means, winning. So, but they gave it to, like always, to these guys, 2 people. I think it was us, and then who's the landscape guy who used to teach at SCI-Arc? I forget his name. You know, yeah, with Juan Azalea. But anyway, so they gave these to 2 winners, and then of course Peter Norver said, this is fantastic. what do I need to do to build this? And I said, raise $100 million. And then he went away. So that was that. And then, you know, some of our drawings got into the MAC Center in Vienna, or in the MAC, sorry, the MAC Vienna, and that was nice. But it was it really, I think for us, talks about you know, the changing landscape of Los Angeles, what a house is in Los Angeles, the scale, and today I'm going to talk a little bit about, I'm going to go through these first, so this gives you an idea of what it would be like to kind of view the house as an object from the top, from the bottom, etc. So, anybody see this? This is from the New York Times, the figure ground, right? It's fantastic. I don't know about you. I'm fascinated with maps, and maybe I'm plan fixated. I'll go on Google Maps and Street View and visit places, and I'm always looking at them. So this is actually from a software company that's supposedly mapped basically a figure ground of the entire United States, right? Of every building. So this is not a map of roads. This is buildings, just only buildings. I tried to figure out, and maybe someone can find this out for me, how many buildings are in the United States? Anybody have an idea? They estimate that there's 82 million single-family homes, which I think is the most prominent number of buildings. So you know, when we look at Los Angeles, and this is a figure ground of Los Angeles, and I'm going to show you projects that are, down here in Venice, in the hills of Pasadena. There's one right here in Point Dume. There's a few up here. So I think 8 of the projects I show will be in here. But I've grouped them into 2 different types. I mean, one is a kind of villa typology, right? So we understand the villa as, you know, characterized as having isolation to other buildings or infrastructure. I mean, it's the Latin derived term. It's remote. It's sometimes in the country, right? Versus what I call it, typically a townhouse, but I don't like that word. So I almost say an almost infill project, where you get houses close together, almost together, typologies where they're almost a townhome or a brownstone condition. And Los Angeles is filled with these kind of things where a townhome, let's say, I would say almost infill types have a more direct relationship with front and back, right? And they also create their own problems having to do with public, private, and sequence and organization. Whereas the villa, you know, has its own problems dealing with open space, entry, and sequence. And so I'm going to talk today about those 2 types. There's like 4 of the villas and 5 of these almost infills or townhouses. And I'm going to talk about specific sequences of spaces, spatial relationships that I'd say focus on the public nature of the house. And this would be, of course, obvious relationships between inside and outside, but also a choreographed and intentional celebration of the circulation of the house. And within the work, there's an interest in the friction and spatial disruptions that can occur at moments of movement and sequence, particularly through entry and vertical circulation. You're going to see a lot of that. For this reason, I'll show you a good number of plans of the projects, and I'll try to map these areas out with the kind of, or note where these points are, and then follow up with 3-dimensional kind of drawings and photographs. And I wouldn't say that we don't believe that plan is a generator, of course, but just for this lecture, it's actually, I think, helpful to be really articulate about, particularly with houses, how the sequence of rooms can kind of work, and I think that's peculiar to our work. So with that, we're going to start with the first villa type. This is project, and this is Point Dume. This is part of California and Los Angeles that faces south, actually. So north is up, PCH is up here. And this is Point Dume, a fairly wealthy enclave of fairly large properties. You know, Bob Dylan lives up here, and Barbra Streisand, and people like that. And our client bought this piece of property here that you see. This is also a famous surf spot and a cliff down here. You can park here as surfers come down, a great secluded beach. The property is about 500 feet in its length and about 125 feet wide. And there was an existing retaining wall here on the side, and there was a tiny little house that was taken down. So with this project, obviously there's views, there's a certain geometry which has to do with different angles of view up and down the coast. But you have this kind of classic front-back problem. It's a villa type in the sense that it's an isolated building. It's got views on all sides. It has neighbors. But it's such a large property. You know, the sequence of driving, this is uphill like this. So you come up, you drive up, you get a glimpse of the house, and of course the back, which is the garage here. And so the entry really becomes the back, and then the view is forward. So all sorts of technical requirements. This is actually a fire road, and this has to have fire truck turnaround, which is convenient for these kind of things because people have large parties and they need people to park on the site, so the turnaround becomes a kind of parking area, etc. Yeah, I think it is. Yeah, can you see it? Maybe it's too fast. I'm jiggling it. So when you enter the house from the back, parking is here. You can slip through. He can slip through here to go right up to his bedroom, or here the kind of formal entry of visitors. And you go half a level down or half a level up to the bedrooms. And so the whole sequence is this kind of S shape that runs through the house and opens up then, of course, to the big open dining living. A pool is engaged here with a trellis. The obligatory home theater here, a little library on this side. So then the second floor, again, oh, that's the first floor, sorry. That's a repeat of the first floor that I just took you through, just a bigger scale. The second floor then up here, you come through, and this is his kind of bedroom, closet, of course, the master, and then 2 guest rooms. And so you see these kind of things that peel out our way, and you'll see this in another project later. Because of the way the zoning worked, the massing was kind of dictated a certain way. This is our way of cheating ocean views to a room that if you did it just 90 degrees, you know, you'd just be at the side property. So you'll see a photograph of that later. And then this diagram really, which talks about that movement and sequence through of going down, of the peel out windows here, the kind of large view this way, and then circulation through and down to the pool and a fire pit on that side. It's kind of sectional cuts that we do through the project. You'll see a lot of those later. Here, this shows the kind of height. There's quite a big slope on the site. That's the existing retaining wall there. And then the aerial, the final project. So this is kind of coming up the side. I'm trying to sequence. This is from the driveway, looking up. We turn around, you're starting to get to the entry, and this is the kind of formal entry with all the doors open. You can see through the house. And this is that hall as you come down, then out into the living room and the pool in the background, of course, the ocean view in the past. This is the second floor. We're looking back in that hallway, which is really the main movement of the house. This is kind of sliding back and forth. And then the bedroom, which just opens up to the deck. And then the open bathroom here. So this is like he can be, right behind here is a shower. And when you shower, you can look out here, look out to the ocean. So this is one of the guest rooms with one of those openings that I mentioned here. So it's just like this kind of peels out. It becomes a bench, a little storage, and that's, of course, the ocean view to the outside. He was, he's still a client of ours. I'm going to show you another project we did for him. And he's a very busy business person and always on the phone and always pacing. And this was outside his bedroom as a runway for him to just walk constantly on the phone in a circle, back and forth and around and around and around. Oddly enough, he sold the house, which is another thing. That's another lecture, talk about that. And he did very well, actually. Okay, This is a little bit another of these kind of villa types. It's this project's in South Pasadena, somewhere in there. This is again the figure from our New York Times friends. This project, this was actually it was a remodel, but a significant kind of blown out addition in the middle, right in here. These were kind of existing rooms, and these rooms, we redid all that stuff. And really, it's about this sequence run through. You have the garage here, but walking through this piece and this big room here, which is this is all one story, and this big ceiling that we did, which is then cut with this skylight and then takes you out towards the views. And the other stuff was just kind of cleaned up. But I also show it in this, it's a downslope this way, and then this is a retaining wall here going up on the back. And then these are just really construction shots that we have. When I get to those, here's a little bit more detail of the plan. So again, entry here, you have a kind of little sunken home theater, the open living, kitchen, dining, another living room here, a little bar area here to the terrace, and then these sliding doors which open up to the outside and guest bedrooms. And yeah, maybe it's not working real well. Yeah, that's the bedrooms there. And so really it was about, with a one-story house, this treatment of this undulating ceiling, which kind of twists and bends and then cuts and carves to create this kind of floating mass that organizes most of the house. There you see it in section. So yeah, entering, past the garage, you go through this slot. Oh, this is it under construction, trying to figure out how to build such a thing. And then that finally in the end. Sorry, this is a construction shot. It's just kind of finished. A little bit more. They're basically one room, one big room. Oh, that's weird. Huh, look at that. That's new. Oh, yeah. That's a really weird drawing. I know something strange happened here. Well, this is a house in Saratoga, in Northern California, for an Apple engineer named Josh Williams. He had lived on the property for a while, and he hired us to do his house and a guest house and a pool, completely one-story house as well. This is downslope. This is this winding road on the side. So the house is very simply a big courtyard that's kind of broken on one side. He had one, actually it's happening right now. Every year he has this huge Halloween party with all his kids, and the weather up there is not so good, and every year he would get rained out. So he said, all I really want is just a big outdoor room. So you'll see that the living room opens up to this fairly big courtyard here with a big opening in the middle. So this is his Halloween party room. And then I'm just going to move to a better plan. So that the house, again, the large garage parking area here, you enter it kind of on the side, so it's not an axial relationship, of course, with the court. So you slip in here, and then this is a big open living, kitchen, dining area, and then these sliding doors open up and back. And then the wings of the house, of course, are the bedrooms. They're wrapped by this glass wall and a moving sunshade, perforated, corrugated tissue here. So there's some privacy from this kind of like public space here and the pool when people are over, etc. You've got guest rooms here with a court in between, the little pool house. So the whole thing's kind of organized around this edge and this fairly large scale space as it opens out. There's a fountain and some other things in here. The family room kind of busts out from the side with its own private courtyard out the back. So like the previous house, a one-story house that is really one big roof form that has a big oculus around that court in the center and cut, so it's all organized around that U shape. Here's the kind of aerial. He's just finishing the pool house now, and these are just under construction. He's actually moved in, but we just haven't photographed it yet. So you get a sense of the scale of the space with him there. And these doors, which just simply go away, they get all slid into that pocket. That's the entry right here as you slide in past the little office, which is on the side. And it gives you an idea of the kind of tissue of the corrugated as it goes through those hallways, essentially, to the bedrooms. This is a project that's just starting construction this week, actually. This is in the Brentwood area of Los Angeles. This is the Getty Center right here. And the house is just about right in here. It's on a cul-de-sac, which you'll see in a minute. This is the street. This is actually the property. That's the existing house, which is being demolished this week. It's a kind of a fairly large property that is also an upslope, as you'll see. Oh boy, that's not good. Maybe that's better, distorted like that. Yeah, for some reason my site plans are coming in just slightly distorted. Well, it's not that distorted. Here's the cul-de-sac here. You drive up, the whole house is a big L shape like this. And right here at this knuckle, where you have the formal entry, is where all the geometry kind of converges. You get the stair, you get a skylight kind of oculus, you get this strip of this kind of stagger of the upper floor, which is shifted forward, and a fairly large cantilever out here of the main living room. It's one of these two living room houses. This is the family room and kitchen. This is the formal living room. And below is a whole other wing. The whole house is about 10,000 square feet, including the basement. And the basement is where the guest rooms are. So I've switched it around a little bit, but that's the cul-de-sac there. There's parking, a garage, which is required, and the driveway's right here. So you drive past it. And this would be for their in-laws visiting and guests and with their own little living room. And then a stair up that gets you to the main house. So that goes down to the garage. So this is all essentially deck, outdoor, green roof basically with the pool, and then this is the L shape. So the plan, they won't park in the garage. They'll park up here, of course, because there's an ample space. So they can kind of sneak into their house in the back from here in the kitchen with a pantry. That's the kitchen, and then the family room. And that dashed line you'll see, that's the deck of the bedrooms all upstairs. But the formal entry is here. Guests would park at the street, come up, enter through here. And at this point, the house is you can from below walk all the way around like a kind of loop through and around and back. This is an elevator. Everybody's doing elevators in houses now because they're all seeing their parents get older, and is pretty much a requirement in all our work. So the second floor, as you come up, there's a landing that peels out, so you get that view back of the entry. You slide up here, there's a little glass bridge. This is all two-story space right at that knuckle. And they slide into their master bedroom this way. This is an open bath, the closet, and then of course this deck here. Their two children have these rooms and their bathrooms on the back. So here you see in this drawing, we're really trying to show, explore that knuckle, that part of the house where everybody's going up and down and meeting, and really the convergence of all this geometry is occurring in that one spot. This is a 3D a model of it, and then what it'll kind of look like eventually when we get to it. All right. These next few projects I'm going to show are these almost infills. So that's it for the villas. These are tighter sites. I wouldn't say they're necessarily more modest houses depending on what they are. The first one I'll show you is actually a spec house, a speculative house, which we don't usually really do. So this is investors wanting to just build a house in Venice and then sell it. But it speaks to maybe one of the last projects that I'll show later in terms of this problem of kind of front-back, very simple problem with houses, you know, where you have a public front and a front yard, which is rarely used, really. This is this kind of, you know, the suburban front yard versus backyard and all the privacy that it has. In this one, really straightforward. It's one of the first ones where we're really actually exploring the side yard, right? It's a very narrow kind of shotgun house in some ways, very straightforward. Cantilever, second floor cantilevers over this area. It's got a pool that's engaged with the house, but you've always got this problem with the front. Of course, the garage takes over such a massive amount of it. There's no way really, unless you bury it, and I'll show one that we did that, you know, you go underground. So very simply, it just is like a house with an ear, and you enter on the right ear as it pops out. You get a glimpse of the yard and the living room, and it's ambiguous in the sense that it's expanding out. It's not necessarily ignoring the rear yard, which has a future guest house if they want it. It's jammed all the way to the front, and very straightforward, but in a way effective, and I think it's a precursor to the last projects I'll show you in China, which really explore this idea maybe in a much more complex way. And so here it is. You know, it's just like we've got an ear. You're like, oh, that's where I enter. And then you get this, which to me is the whole house. So it's this weird thing like, wait a second, I'm looking through this yard on one side and then the living room on the other. So it's like, it's in a very simple way, trying to speak to this kind of front, back, side, and emphasis on the side. And then of course you go through the house and it's opening up to the landscape, this kind of thing. This is also the same figure ground because it's in the same part of Pasadena, the Sang residence, which is also on a very tight site, very limited on the area we could do. And so I would say that most of our clients are maximizing the absolute buildable area that we can do, and the laws are getting harder and harder. You know, you've heard about the kind of McMansionization code ordinances which limit area and height with houses. And this was in South Pasadena where there's pretty strict zoning regulations for that. Very odd first plan to show of the project, but I show it because this is really the limits of the house. It's just this box like that, driveway, upslope to the first floor. He, I say he collects cars. He wanted to collect cars. He hadn't collected cars yet. And so we weren't allowed to make this a room, but we made this outside. It's covered and deck. And we made this wall, and he's going to tear this wall down because the garage he's going to use all of that as garage and enclose this. So we kind of cheated this through the regulation, but it's high, so that he can put a lift in it and he can, you know, work on some of his cars. He's actually a doctor, but in this kind of extended plinth. So the whole house is kind of on this base. And then you get to the first floor, which is, you walk up here, you enter on the lower level, and then you slide up this staircase here with this slot in the middle. So this house is essentially forgetting about the side yards. It's like built to the max. On the edges, it's a very straightforward sense of, you know, the front is just utilitarian, and then the back is where the plinth and a little bit of the garden, and then a cut down to that basement room, so he can walk up here, walk up, and then a very compact, little guest bathroom, living room, dining room in the center where there's this cut, and then of course the kitchen. And this is his little, at the landing level, little area for his office right here, which kind of overlooks, and underneath of which is a window down to the driveway. So the second floor, I mean, just super compact, two, bedrooms for the kids, and then their bedroom and closets, etc., and outside decks here. And then one walks up through this, and then a bridge in between this void. And this is the section. So here you see the extended kind of large garage. This thing sits on this plinth, the opening down to the living room, and then that half level, which is his little office, which is cut above. And so all of that then is just the void is glass from the ceiling all the way down to the back, which you'll see. And then really from their back terraces where they get the view out into the landscape. So this is the front. Again, these were still kind of messy. It was before they moved in, but still under construction. So this is that mid-level window. This bends down to signify the kind of entry here because you slide in, and then up, that's his little studio, and then there's the upper bedrooms. This is looking up. It's not quite finished the stair. Oh, there's Helen. There's Helen, one of their kids. So that we're looking back at that slot window that's at the front. So this is the front of the house, right where she is there. And then back. This actually isn't a house, but it's for the same client as the first house that I showed you. His name's Mike Thaxton. And this is his office building, but it's so small, it's almost like a house. Plus, it also kind of relates to some of the other things I'm thinking about. This project, I'm so glad Jeff is here because, Jeff, you don't know this, but you totally influenced this project. Jeff gave a lecture, it was one of your many lectures to thesis students. And he gave a lecture just on openings. You probably have heard it. So he talks about the Venturi's house, you show Rem's house, you talk about the strip window, you talk about this stuff. And we were designing this project. And when you're faced with like this kind of project, so it's a remodel of an existing Tudor office building. So we were going to just strip the thing down. A lot of constraints. It was really just a facade. So in essence, I remember seeing your lecture, and I said, this is the problem I'm working on right now, which is a project that's really just about openings and facades. So the project is essentially about openings. So that's how I'm going to talk about it, and that's really what the project is. So here's the plan of it. It's a odd site. It's kind of a corner project that's not a corner in a way. Because of course the gas station is on the real corner. This is an alley which goes to a parking garage of this office building. So, and then there's parking on the side, and then he has a little bitty lot here, and it's just a 2-story, 7,000 square foot building. The bottom is retail, and his office occupies this floor here. And in a way, like a house, Mike's office, he had a bathroom put in with a shower. Sometimes he sleeps at his office. He put a washing machine back in here, and then these are all his employees sit here. The program is very simple. Open offices, a few enclosed ones, a big employee break room at the corner, and then his office here in the back. So he sits right here. So the whole thing with this project is the openings simply react to this corner. So they're trying to, instead of in a non-frontal way, not 90 degrees to the surface, but diagonally to address that where it's more open. And in a way, it's trying to scoot past and say, oh, this parking garage doesn't exist, right? So it's all about slipping that way. You enter either here or in the back, very simple, like that area or that area. And then we came up with this way of like his house that you saw earlier, peeling out the windows so that in plan, the window is not 90 degrees to the building. It's angled and it's peeled off. So there's a series of openings which then at this point we're interested in the corner. This is the unraveling. Blurring the two stories. This is a special window at his office. So when he sits back here in his office, you'll see he sees a very specific view to the corner. And not shown in this drawing, but dashed in is the front, which are these elevations. So you've got the corner, the lower floor is just blown out, and then these various peel-out windows. And that's essentially the project, the model of it. And then here it is. So trying to look at things like this are different levels, seating levels, windows at your feet. This is the one that grabs down. It actually spans from the lower to the upper. You're not quite sure where the floor is. And some different views. That on the right is the street view. On the left is his office. And then that's the view past the 76 station. So this is Mike's sitting at his desk. He goes right, he enters the office. Left is out here. And that's, of course, the inside there. It's a funny intersection. It's Tujunga and Moore Park in Los Angeles. It's in the valley. So it's one of these projects that a lot of people have seen, I guess. I do a lot of houses. People are always like, oh, tell me a project that I may have seen. I mentioned this project, and people are always like, oh, you did that? Oh, yeah, I drive by that. This is because it's an odd thing. One of my best, Neil Denari texted me a photo of it because he stopped at the gas station. He said it's the only piece of architecture in the valley. So we're big in the valley, turns out. This project is in the Pacific Palisades, which is up. Where is it? Where am I? Just about up here, I believe. One of these streets. On the edge, a fairly large house, unlike the Pasadena one, but similar in the sense of, again, this is like a almost infill project. This one, oddly, a downslope, so you enter on the kind of mid-level, and then it goes down, and then one level up. So similar problems that we've had before with the garage, kind of central entry, and this is another one of these houses where the center is voided out into this kind of atrium space that creates a figure, which you'll see in a couple drawings and in a rendering that extends from the entry through and then the back. And essentially on the back, it's just a three-story house looking out to an amazing ocean view. So basement level, there's a kind of amphitheater seating here, a little stair that slides really down from the main floor. Bedrooms, a family room, etc., and of course the pool down the slope. But the second floor, you see where you start to see that void. This is that opening there is here, which is a kind of upside down arch, and then on the back side right here is this piece that's a cut. So the facade essentially becomes that void as you go through, and you're just sliding in. So this whole entire house is organized around this movement zone. So you're sliding up this stair at that point, which this drawing is trying to describe as the void. That's that cut up through the skylight, and then this is the kind of surface of the big open room down below. All right, we're close here, I think. This is the last two projects I'm going to show. This probably maybe the most successful one of this type. Here, you see, this is our kind of figure ground. This is in the middle of the city, just actually near the Schindler House, not too far from it. 50 by 130 foot lot, organized by this cut right through the house, this kind of banana shape that you'll see, that slices through and becomes the pool in the backyard. Another one of these projects where we're fitting everything we can. It's it's a fairly small lot. We've got a guest house, a pool, an outdoor deck, a garage, semi-subterranean, and 1, 2, 3, 4 bedrooms, all in this little area. So again, you can see the kind of typical, a back front suburban, the pools, etc., little garages if they have them on the side. And so here we're really looking at what the potential of this kind of piece is, and almost a kind of public space as you enter the house. So I'm not sure if I didn't show a basement plan, but this is the driveway and it goes below. So the whole house is lifted up about 3 feet, and then we excavated down about 6 feet for the garage. So we solved that problem by lowering it. And this is essentially this path that cuts through. So you enter the house here, you're at grade level, and then you go up just those 3 feet. And now we're at that plinth level. And the house opens up. You kind of slip and slide in and out of these kind of 2 curves, that one and that one. To open then, it's all blown out here with 1 single column there of the kitchen, living, dining, and all glass. And then the pool engages the facade, which you'll see later here, and then all these doors open. And then you've got this kind of 2, you have to walk around here and go down and back up again, or access here to the pool and the studio for her in the back. Little guest room here and pantry side door. Essentially another, I didn't do the, and then upstairs, very simple. When you come up, there's a landing at a lower level. You look out back at the front, a deck here, and then you switch back up and you can slip right into the master bedroom with a deck, closet, and bath here, or a glass bridge across to their daughter's room here with a kind of parallel set of decks and bathroom in the back. So here you can see in these drawings what since it was basically 2 houses side by side, they had to be laterally connected. And there's a few different ways we could have done that. We could have let them slip, but the amount of movement that they were required for us to deal with is like 4 inches or something, and it would kill all the glass and would have gotten big sorts of things. So we created this kind of stitch of a single pipe that connects like a kind of horizontal beam that slips through the skylight and actually literally ties the 2 houses together. And then this is a drawing of ours just starting to look at all these kind of elements as they connect through the house, whether that's a stair that's part plinth and then frees up. And you'll see later how materiality comes into play with that. Again, the diagram, figure ground, and then this kind of assemblage of a kind of choreograph of movement through the heart of this house. So when you enter, there's a wall here that's made in polycarbonate that hooks over like a kind of veil, which is all LED lit. That is a sunshade. There's the amount of sun that's south on this side. This is north. So that's shaped in such a way that you can still see out from in the house, but then also deals with sun. This is his office here. Obviously you come in, this is the entry. Got a similar shot a little bit closer, so you're starting to see that slot as it comes in. And then you enter the house, and this is really where it opens up. So the water, of course, is at the floor level, and this is seamless as well as these doors open up. That's the guest house. The pool house is here. It's just got frosted glass, so at night it can light up and be a kind of lantern. And then this is that slot as it cuts down. That's the bridge that connects the 2 wings, so that's their master bedroom on the left up top. And then looking back, so the stitching of the truss becomes the railing as this piece, and this is really this, it's as if the base is raising up, it cuts down the stair. This stair belongs to the ceiling, and it's done in the same kind of dark walnut ebony material. It frees up, so one understands the plinth at this point, and then you're onto a different system, and then at the landing, of course, which is where you're looking back out to the public. This dog is saying, "Who the hell designed this place?" Anyway, looking back at the, it's actually a sweet dog, but looking back at that slot again and the kitchen. The hidden projector wall. Things like this, you know, the fireplace becomes the glass, the opening, and a giant bench on the side, and just at a different scale of the living room. And that wall's kept open because they sometimes project from the TV. But then to the right here is the kind of more intimate, you know, living room with a little piano and a television in the back. And this is that slot you come up from for the garage. So you just slide, they day to day come in that way. And then on the second floor, looking back, this is where that slip occurs. They kind of go left, their doors through the bedroom and the kids' bedroom to the right. And then that bedroom that extends out. And the bathroom. Huh? Two bathrooms, right.
So at the end of the pool, is that an overflow well?
Yeah, I think I have a shot of it. That? Yes. Yeah, so this is jacuzzi. So the jacuzzi flows higher into that pool. And that pool, that's a 3/4 inch drop between the stone, and there's like an angled V underneath there, and that's where all the water goes in there. Yeah. Sorry?
It would have been a hell of a sliding board.
Yeah, right. Yeah. There was talk about that, about in the teenage years, whether or not people will be jumping from here to there, which is quite possible. Yeah, yeah. So here it is from the back. Okay, this is the last project. This is the last house. This is a project we actually designed a few years ago. We were asked to do 54 houses as part of a large development in the city of Chengdu. And it's a development company that basically in the outskirts of the city, really removed from the city in this area, we're planning millions of square feet of housing, office, all sorts of things. And it's basically on land that was flooded rice paddies. So they were flooding them, they're called Lux Lakes villas. And this is it. Fairly horrifying thing. And our part is right here. That's all we had to do. Antoine Predock did a building here. Some other LA architects had these things. Tom Main was going to design this whole thing. They hired many architects to work on it. It's been years in the making. And then oddly enough, this is an early, this is the main road. The city's this way. But while we were working on it, I think this is an Antoine Predock building here. And while we were working on it, they said, oh, we have a problem with the mayor. There's a new mayor in Chengdu. And we said, what's the problem? They said, well, you see this road? This is a straight road to the center of the city. And he says, the road shouldn't turn, the road should go straight. And mind you, the road was built, the highway's built, Predoc's building was about 90% done. And we said, so what are you going to do? I said, well, we got to make the road straight. So they cut Predoc's building in half, and they made the road straight. You know, and the audacity of at least this kind of work, one is either horrified by or some level of respect. So we were essentially given, as I said, this area here, and it was planned for 54 houses, and they were all on these kind of little lots. But they were going to be 3-story. That was clear, and they were big. They were like 5,000 square feet, 5 bedrooms. You know, these kind of things. So we began to work on these, and what we really tried to do is work on the stuff in between. So there's all sorts of geometries going on. There's this kind of notion of a fluidity from front to back that you'll see in detail later. But what we're really doing is saying, like, can we make space in between lots? So these aren't totally just front back. It's odd that they called them villas. You know, this is actually called villas, like Lux Lake's villas. They're not really. I mean, this was pretty compact stuff, right? Small lots with all the same things. You know, you drive in this side, and then this is water. Everybody gets a waterfront, right? Everybody gets a water view. But what we're really interested in are these spaces in between this, like even the Venice house I showed you, developing this kind of side, which is a more ambiguous understanding of how these things work, and it also frees up the plans. So the plans become, it's almost like every room has like light from all different sides, right? So like a villa would, you know, in many ways. So we designed 6 different types out of the 55, and I'm going to show you 4 in plan, and then you're going to see some of them built. Similar to some of the other projects, this is the basement level, which is essentially water level, okay? So the road level is 1 level up, which you'll see, and then bedrooms second. So this is like what you call boat level, so the water's here. And you know, what goes down in those kind of spaces are, of course, the home theater, like a small maid's quarters, and then the other kind of game room, living room, and so, and a pool. So that was the kind of, these were the program pieces that we had to work with. Everyone had to have a pool. Everyone had to have these certain kinds of rooms. So they kind of self-organized by level in a straightforward way. But then, okay, we're starting to work on them now and break them apart as you circulate through. Always, each one, it's very special how you go level to level. Like in this case, you go to the 2nd floor and you're up here. When you see these plans and you say, well, what's going on with these thicknesses? They're all concrete. So they're built in, but their concrete quality there and steel rebar quality is at a lower level, which means the spans are far less than we would normally think concrete can do. So this is like maybe 6 meter, 5 meter spans, about 18 feet, and the columns are like 50 centimeters big, you know. So it wasn't intentional, but we had to deal with this stuff. So you see, you know, things like, you know, let's see where, if I, you know, like that, right? Thickened walls into these columns. But in any case, the intent was now rooms kind of free up in these lots. This is one of the wider lots, right? So we could come in, we could go down to the basement, we go upstairs. We've got a regular kitchen and then a kind of special walk kitchen, which is got a really intense fume hood up here. You know, the 2-car garage, library, study, formal living room in this case here. And then upstairs, you know, the bedrooms get divided, the master always being the largest, guest rooms in the back, etc. And then this all being that movement space there. Another type, this one a little bit narrower, same kind of program. And this one, I mean, we're doing things like, you know, this is a pool above this room, you know, so it's all concrete. And so when you go to this level, you know, that's the swimming pool on the edge. So you've got these upper, again, the side yard here. In this case, you can actually enter on that side yard off this side. You get it, right? You get all the space. But these are kind of getting cut down the middle here when we get to the upper level. Because this one's narrower. It's got some exterior decks on it. This big stair up into the bedrooms and that slot down the middle. This one was definitely one of the ones that you'll see in a photograph. This one, again, you're seeing the flows that run through. This one has a kind of object inside the house. That's this kind of boat shape which holds the master bedroom. This is a glass wall around it, and that slides and slips out as a balcony as you come up this way. One odd one, which is this kind of corner site that had to do with how these lots were dictated. So this one's a little bit different shape, but doing similar things. So this shows, the kind of excavation, essentially. So the road is high, and then this is all the retaining walls, right, that'll be built to cut through here. Model of 3 of the units. I mean, so while there may be divisions, of course, between houses and maybe a fence, et cetera, at least at a spatial level, we're trying to create these volumes this one internal, this one between 2 houses. And then different studies. Well, this really speaks again to that every room gets kind of a view of the water by creating this kind of porous system. They're also allowing, as you're moving in and out of this stuff, you're always engaged back into the lake. And some of our earlier renderings, so they're stone and metal. It's very interesting. I took them to a house, the first house I showed, which was a concrete floor. This was really interesting to me. So the development team came out. They wanted to see our work to see if we could really do this stuff. And so I took them to that house. And they weren't really that impressed with it, actually. One thing they said, it had concrete floors. And I said, it's concrete. That's great. You just grind the concrete. And they said, never. And I said, why? They said, that's when we were poor. We had concrete floors. So in the clientele who are buying these, then the materiality, and you'll see, is a bit ostentatious, shall we say. That it wants to have the symbol of luxury and materiality. We were always like, no, it's fine, just white and gray. Like, can we just, narrow down? So there were some issues with the interiors at that point. So we took these projects to this level, and then they said, thank you very much. You're done. They paid us. They're great. It was really good. And then 3 months ago, we got some photographs that I'm going to show you. And I said to Margaret, you know what just happened? Like 18 years we've been doing all this stuff. We've probably built like 20 houses. Our total output just doubled in one day. 54 houses that you're going to see in a minute. This is the one. Yeah. So they're almost done. Here you can start to see some of those types. And here they are. They're not bad, no. They're exactly the way we designed them in terms of the volume and the geometry. We had given them Rhino models of all the geometry, which went to structural and all that stuff. And the exterior, we had been there and picked various types of stone, stone roofs even, stone roofs, so walls. The interiors got a little bit away from us, but they're essentially. What's that? Just before the outlaw of crazy architecture, right, exactly. Yeah. So here, yeah, it does what we tried to do. There they are, right, those pieces. These are the first ones that are finished, so they're just now this year phasing them through, when you saw the, this is their construction shed and storage area. That's going to be all water. So once these are the ones that they're most finished, they retreat that way. This will get excavated, and that's all water in there. You can see it right in the upper left, right there, right? See this kind of stuff, yeah. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, we talked to the photographers who gave us these images. We're sending them back again to do our own shots. These were commissioned by the company. So we would art direct them slightly differently, but that's basically it. We imagine that as synthetic and blue, but it works in wood too. Right. Right. Thanks.